Hey y'all, 𝗚𝗵𝘁 here. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to take a peek at this knife in a little more detail, but y'all, I think I might have got ripped off again. So I bought this knife on OK Knives. It looks like a 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏. It came in a 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 looking box. Reeve, sorry. I know that's singular. I always still do that. But y'all, I don't think this is real. We're going to take a look at the good, the bad, the ugly since I got it anyhow. We'll see if maybe I'll decide to keep it. But as so many of us are, I've been on this journey with these styles of knives here for the last 6 months or so. And about 6 months ago, I picked up this little small 𝗬𝗵𝘁 21 looking model. I got this off of Temu. It was a heck of a good deal. I just love the design, the style of it. It actually, still for me with just a size large glove, it's kind of a 4-finger knife, but after carrying it for a little while and using it, it just felt a little bit on the small side. Great for small, lightweight EDC type carry, but I do have some other knives that I really prefer, I think, in that small EDC category. So then about 2 months ago, I went out and got this knife, off of AliExpress. Pretty sure this isn't the real one either. If for no other reason than it rides on ceramic bearings, double row actual ceramic bearings. And so this knife has really found its way into my pocket quite a bit here over the last 2 months. Very fidgety. I love just sitting with it around the office and my desk. You can slow roll it out. It's got those soft close O-rings on it. Anyhow, really have enjoyed carrying and using this knife. I thought it was going to be too big for me, but it turns out it actually is kind of a nice size. Again, for something in a little bit larger, a little more hard use. I don't work in any kind of major industrial factory type stuff where I'm, breaking down thousands of boxes a day. I'm just a general office warrior, around the home, Amazon packages, cardboard boxes, maybe little light yard work. So I really enjoyed this knife, and I've carried it a lot, but y'all know me. I'm a big fan of the sheep's foot style blades. You can see that in almost all my videos. I love that to death. So I thought, well, maybe I should give a try to this other model that I have been seeing floating around out there. And so that's what led me to this. And this one is an interesting mutt. As I have investigated this and learned more about the 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 knives, what I have discovered is this is like half of a 𝗬𝗵𝘁 25 and half of an Inkosi, and then half of nothing else, which I realize is 3 halves. So we're going to take a look at those, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll dive into the specs and do all that stuff. Before we get too deep here, if you would please, down below, hit that subscribe and notification bell. Help your buddy out. I sure do appreciate it. If you got to leave early, throw me a thumbs up just to help the old algorithms. I do appreciate that. Let's take a look at the box. I always do that, the box that it came in, so I had to write what it is because you'll see in a minute I have 2 identical looking boxes. So this is an old box. The fun stuff is what comes inside. So there you go. I have no affiliation, by the way. I did not intend for that card to be there, although I don't mind. So yeah, let me say that right off the bat. I have no affiliate relationship with OK Knives at all whatsoever. You can buy or not buy, doesn't matter to me. I don't make a penny from them, and they don't give me knives either. So I got no relationship. I'm just sharing what I buy. This one is interesting. So it's got a little, hopefully you can see that, the 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 knives on the front, but then this is where it's fun. And if y'all remember back to my Umnumzaan video, I got the exact same thing. It's supposed to say think twice. Hopefully y'all can see that. But what it says is think twick. There's no E at the end. And then it was supposed to say cut once, but it says gut once. Hopefully y'all can see that in there too. So think twick, gut once. Hilarious. So I'm going to guess this is probably not an authentic 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏 pouch or leather slip. It does appear to be real leather or something close to it. Also comes with some of this stuff in here, which says large 𝗬𝗵𝘁 25 S35VN. You can tell this is a photocopy from 2013. I'm pretty sure this knife wasn't made in 2013. I think what they've got is just a whole bunch of these sitting around, and as a matter of fact, I'm absolutely certain of that, because if you go back and look back at my Umnumzaan video, you will see that it came in the exact same box with the exact same think twick gut once slip in there. So I'm pretty sure these both came from the same factory, using the same old boxes, same old cards, etc. So, will that fool somebody? I don't know. I guess maybe if you're really just not paying attention at all. But there are definitely other giveaway factors here on this knife. So we're going to take a little bit of a closer look. Before we get too deep in there, let's do some size comps. I always like to start out with that. This is a pretty full-size knife. This is, you know, in my category, this is what I'm going to call my more hard-use knife, more full-size. You can see Crooked River and the bench-made bug-out full-size. It is right in between those two. So nice, again, pretty full-size. Spyderco people are going to want to compare it to the PM2, which you can see is really right at about that same size, or the Para 3, which is it's considerably longer than the Para 3. Put that up on this side, you can see the this Chris Reeve looking knife actually has a little bit longer of a blade. So very similar in size, if you're wondering, to that PM2. I've already showed you these, but I didn't line them up. Obviously, it's much larger than that Sebenza small, and it's about the same size as the Umnumzaan looking knife that we have here. We're going to do a lot of back and forth comparisons, really to probably all three of these, because I think it helps really tell the story of what we got. All right, let's do some specs real quick. We just saw the size comparisons. I'll bring them up down the side. You can see this is a 8.375, so a little under 8.5 inches total length, 3.5-inch blade. I think it's about 3.3-ish cutting area, 4 3/4 inches closed. Blade thickness comes in at a 0.14, fairly respectable. Handle thickness, mine came in a little bit different. So you can see all the green check marks mean this one is matching up, but the handle came in a little bit thicker. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom in the weight category, you can see it's a little heavier. Well, that just makes intuitive sense. If this titanium scales are thicker on this model than on the real one, then it stands to reason it's going to be a little bit heavier as well. I did pay $50 for this thing on OK, as I mentioned. And the blade edge, I like to measure behind the blade. I'll tell you, this is a very sharp blade. We'll look at that in a second. About 16/1000ths. So not necessarily the thinnest, but this hollow grind here is a very interesting thing. We're going to take a closer look at that again in a minute. So again, let's talk about the difference between this. I thought I was buying an Inkosi Insingo style blade. This blade is called the Insingo style, and it comes on different models of their knives. It doesn't come on the Umnumzaan as far as I can find. So the Sebenza Model 25 was the one that was created just before the Inkosi, okay? The two look basically identical. They have this same double scallop here. It's almost a triple if you want to count that, as opposed to the original, like Sebenza 2131s, had only one shallow finger groove, and then the rest of the scale was very flat. Again, very much like this right here. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what it was. So they added this second finger scallop for the 25s and the Inkosis. Both come with an Insingo blade. Both, again, look pretty much identical side by side. Let's talk about some differences. So the way you can tell the difference, first and foremost, maybe one of the easiest ways between the Inkosi and the 25 is this stop pin right here. On the real Inkosi, this is a solid pin. Let's see. So this would be a great example to show. See how these are solid pins up here? This literally sticks through the scales, okay? This is not bolted on this side at all. It's just kind of free floating there and fits perfectly inside the hole on this side of the scale. Well, that is what you get with this on the front show side, is it's only screwed on to the back, and then it's no screw head here on the front. So that's one nice, easy way you can tell. I'll pull up some pictures, actually. That might help tell the story as well. All right, so I look at that and I say, okay, well, I must have a 25 and not the Inkosi. Then you go to item number 2, which is the pocket clip. So both have the same titanium pocket clip. This is titanium as well. The 25, though, has the pocket clip running straight down the lock bar. On the Inkosi, they updated the 25 to have it angled a little bit, where it is now split basically half and half, like this one is. So if you're just looking at the pocket clip, then this is an Inkosi. If you're looking at the front pin, then this is a 25. So that's where you get half and half. Then one of the other elements is that the blade tang inside the tang is cut out. You can't really see it. It's going to be up here at this point, right below this fingertip. Is got a groove, because the way both of these work is there's a ceramic detent ball, which normally you get on the lock bar. This one is put up at the inside corner in here. It's going to be impossible to see. Again, I'll bring up some pictures. You can see what that looks like. That detent ball is actually what rides on the tang of the blade. So the steel of the blade never touches any of the titanium lock bar. It only touches that detent ball, which is sitting right on that inside corner down deep in there. So the detent ball right now is pushed up against the tang of the blade, and as I go down this way, that detent ball is now riding along, of course, the side of the blade tang. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted this model, as opposed to like an old Sebenza 21. In these old models, it's titanium on steel, and that wears fast. And what I found on my Spyderco, like my 𝗍𝗍𝗫 and the Spyderco Bowie, that titanium, particularly in these inexpensive versions, these replicas, wears away much faster. On the real ones, it's called carburize. They harden it. They heat it up and really harden that titanium so it doesn't wear nearly as fast as it continues to rub back and forth across the steel as you open and close the knife. Well, on these, you don't get like that. So my 𝗍𝗍𝗫 ended up with a little bit of a loose rock lock because it had just worn in that titanium lock bar. So it would jiggle just a little bit. Still plenty solid enough to use, but that really just bothers me to no end. And it's not, it's not a long-term solution. So that's one of the things that the Umnumzaan also has going for it. It has that same ceramic ball interface on the corner of the inside of that lock bar. And so it's the ceramic ball that's touching the blade. So this titanium bar will never wear out on this knife. This one, obviously, again, is much more fidgety. But this one's worn in pretty smoothly as well. All right, so there's the ceramic ball. And the tang, the blade tang, as I was mentioning, is cut out just a little bit. There's a groove, horizontal groove right here on the tang of the blade where that ball would ride in and out as it moves now against the rear of the blade tang there. So one other thing, and mine doesn't have it. So again, the 25 doesn't have it. So again, now I have two factors that say this is probably the 25 and not the Inkosi, which matches the clip. Then on the inside, they both use different washers. The 25 has big spoked wheel washers. You may have seen those. The Inkosi has new kind of wider spokes on that phosphor bronze washers, but it's also cut out to wrap around this blade stop pin here. And this has neither of those. This just has standard bronze washers. It actually has two washers on one side and one washer on the other. Don't know why, other than maybe they did that to get the blade to center up, is my only guess. I have ordered some new washers. So in that regard, the other half, the third half as it were, has nothing to do with either of those knives at all. The washers on this knife is neither 25 nor Inkosi. All right, y'all with me on that all now. So back to this. Obviously, this is a non-reversible pocket clip. However, Chris Reeve does make lefty-specific models that will have it obviously on this side as opposed to this side for the righties. Let's talk about the hardware a little bit. These are T15 pivot screws, T8 for the body screws. All good there. The scales are full titanium. They call this in China TC4 titanium, which is the same thing as the US version of 6AL4V, which is the grade 5 titanium. These are one and the same. I know a lot of people get confused and think, well, the Chinese titanium is different than the US titanium. TC4 is the exact same thing as what you get in the US 6AL4V, okay? Standard barrel spacer for the back lanyard. You get that on all the models. Very good. No problem. I'm still testing lanyards, by the way. Since these came with lanyards, I thought, you know what? If it comes with it, let me give it a try. I'm not a big lanyard fan. You'll know that if you've watched my previous videos. So I can't decide if I want to take it off or put it on. You can see this one I've left quite long, and this one I have quite short. Still can't decide if I like it or not. I'm giving it a try. It came with the lanyard. I'm going to give it a shot and see what we think about all that. Anyhow, the scales are good. It fits me well. Again, I have a size large glove, if I didn't mention that already. I like these two-finger choils. That fits my hand quite nicely. This is clearly going to fit XL hands and double XL hands for that matter. You are quite a ways back from the blade, though. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more in the ergonomics, but the scales are good. You can tell a slight difference. So only if you know better, where it says Idaho made, this is very close to the real version of that. But if you look at the real one, it's actually just a little bit closer to the actual edge of that top of the scale there. So, you know, you could put two side by side and you could tell the difference, but if you didn't know any better, this is pretty accurate there. Of course, this is running on the Reeve integral lock with that ceramic detent ball, as I said. It's kind of silly to whack. Actually, it's not silly to do a blade whack. I've done this a lot. This is definitely a absolutely solid lockup. But I'll tell you the reason why it does make sense to do it. If y'all remember, I had an all steel version of this small one, and you could whack that not very hard and it would break free on a steel to steel lockup nonetheless, from a steel frame to the steel tang. This one, fortunately, for some reason, I guess the geometry got right on this. Geometry is definitely right on these as well, so you're not going to break that free. Again, this is running on a couple of bronze washers. I did polish them up a little bit to make them smooth. If you've been watching, you can see that I can definitely flip this out with very little effort. But I'm going to tell you, when this thing first came, it was stiff as a board. It was very difficult to even roll it out, even to slow roll it. At this point, it is now broken in and really flips out quite nice. It won't drop shut in any way, shape, or form. I guess if you shake it really hard, you might be able to get it to drop shut. And that's just because those washers are starting to wear in quite nicely. I really originally wished I had bearings because, again, that's what I loved so much on this Umnumzaan was those bearings. So I was trying to find one of these with bearings, and nobody makes it with bearings, at least no one that I could find. Don't tell me if you find one, because now I'm going to be just disappointed. Although, having said all that, now that I've had a chance to run this on washers, and now that these washers have broken in as nicely as they have, I actually think I might enjoy just keeping this on washers. And I think I mentioned a minute ago, I've actually ordered some of the real-looking kind of spoked wheel phosphor bronze washers that I'm going to put into this knife and wear it out like that. You know, so many people say they love their washer knives. I like the fidgetiness of it, but I'll tell you, I mean, as easy as that flips out, and then it's not a big deal to pull it back in, I'm actually okay. I think I'm going to give that a shot. Detent on this is a little soft, but it's actually not terrible. It's a little softer than I want, but, you know, if you saw, it doesn't take much effort, and you don't fail it. I mean, you almost don't, even with a soft flip, you can fail it, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it doesn't take much effort to. So the detent, I think, is pretty well dialed in. It could be a little stiffer, but you know what? I'm going to live with that. All right, let's talk about the blade. Obviously, there's minimal to no branding, true to what the real one looks like. It does say S35VN. That is all you get on there. Here's the biggest disappointment of this knife, and I wonder if anybody has spotted this yet, is the shape of the blade. So Chris Reeve knives have a really iconic shape that slopes up to the pivot and then back down towards the front of the blade. This one is supposed to do it as well, but you can see they have left this just above the scales. So that's just a huge miss, in my opinion, and is the single most disappointing thing about this knife. So, you know, if that's the most disappointing thing about this knife, I guess life isn't all that bad, but I really wanted this shape to match that up and down across that back hump of that blade like they're supposed to. This one is supposed to also, but it doesn't. It was just the engineering was off wherever they drilled that pivot hole. And really, I think the whole geometry of the blade itself, this should actually be sloping back down. So I think they just missed this cut when they were cutting out these blades. So that's a huge disappointment for me. Otherwise, has a beautifully nice crown spine. Everything is very smooth, true to what you find on the original. Nice deep hollow grind. Let's talk about this hollow grind, because I noticed this especially on the Umnumzaan, but it's present here as well. So this is going to be what I call, I don't know what to call it, a recurve hollow grind. I did a drawing, and this is what I want to show you. So most hollow grinds just curve in, right? They curve in on both sides, and then there's a little secondary bevel, which is the real sharpened tip. This is a terrible drawing, obviously not to scale, but what I have found on both of these knives is this curves in, but then it curves back out a little bit right before that secondary grind happens. It's definitely even more noticeable on this Umnumzaan. You can just feel it all the way to the bottom, and then when you get to that little last bit of secondary cut, it pops back out just a little bit. What that means is that as you sharpen this knife, the more you take away from that, the more you're going to cut it down to where now you're cutting your blade, your point, into the thinnest, the very thinnest part of the blade, which is probably a few millimeters back from the edge. So as you continue to sharpen it, it should actually get sharper and sharper and thinner, which is kind of a cool take on these knives. I just thought that was so interesting. I thought I'd share it. You guys know, anyhow, I love the good sheep's foot blade style with a slight bit of belly in it, that deep hollow grind, the minimal branding. The action, again, is smooth enough. It's not drop shut, but it's definitely easy enough to flip open and easy enough to pull back closed. There is no blade play. It's locked up, solid as can be, front down, left, right. Here's where I get a little bit. So I can get, at this point, just a hair of forward and backward. And I wonder if putting those new washers on it will help that. But anyhow, just reporting what it is. No detent lash, pretty solid down here as well. Let's talk about cutting, because that's why you buy a knife. I'm going to tell you, this is one of the sharpest knives I've had come out of the box. Shockingly sharp. I'm trying to go as slow as I can just so y'all can see. This thing came laser sharp. Very happy about that. Yeehaw for that. So what does that mean? It's going to tear through cardboard with ease, obviously. I mean, that's like a hot knife going through butter, right? You can cut anything all day long. Now, the question is, what kind of steel? I haven't even addressed that. Obviously, since I doubt this is a real knife, given what I paid for it and the other things that we have discovered on it, I have no idea. Here's what I think it is. And I'm going to tell you why. I believe this is a 9CR14 steel. And the reason I say that is because if you go to the listing for where I bought the Umnumzaan, it says this is a 9CR14 steel. So we have two Chris Reeve knives that are very similar, and both came in the exact same boxes with the exact same paperwork inside. Everything is exactly identical. The Think Twick Gut Once kind of leather pouch. That tells me these came from the same factory, and given that, that's my suspicion, is that this is a 9CR14 because that's what they told us this was. Obviously, that wouldn't be what this knife normally is. So is that decent? I can live with that. 9CR18 is pretty darn popular. There's all kinds of knives out there made in 9CR18 still today in the budget line. Even Spyderco makes knives in 9CR18 still. 14, between 18, I don't know how much of a difference that makes. At any rate, I'll probably be okay with that. This is, I don't have big industrial uses for this stupid knife. All right, let's bring this thing home. The ergonomics are pretty solid. It feels good in my hand. I am a little back from the blade here. You could still easily do that. You can certainly get it in a pinch grip. Then I'll wrap these two fingers around that choil. I love the draw cut ability of that sheep's foot style blade. I often will choke up, even though this is clearly not intended to be that. I still will put my finger here like a trigger grip and literally pull that finger back in. And if I'm doing, unless I'm doing something where I'm really going for it and there's a risk that I could slip, if I'm just like cutting up cardboard like we were doing just a second ago, I probably even did this and didn't even think about it, is put that finger up there when I'm cutting, my cardboard. So anyhow, I like the ergos on it. I love it. I love the size. I love the weight of it. It's 5 ounces, but it's a full-size knife to me, and that doesn't feel heavy. It's relatively thin. It's not like a Spyderco that's too bulky. Feels good. The action on these crappy washers is actually pretty good, so I'm really looking forward to what it's going to be like when I get some nice phosphor bronze on here. I like the ceramic ball interface for all the reasons I said. That's going to make this knife last a long time for me. Love the sheep's foot blade. This is my heavy-duty knife. Now, my only decision is, do I want to carry this one or the Umnumzaan? Tough call. I love the fidgetiness of that Umnumzaan being on those bearings. That thing is just smooth as can be, has the same detent ball lockup. But this has that sheep's foot blade that I love so much and find much more useful in my day-to-day kind of EDC. So there's kind of where I'm ending up on the decision between these. I'm not going to recommend this knife because I don't want anybody else to have to experience the same pain and agony that I experienced in buying a knife only to discover that it is not real. That wouldn't be right at all. So what I can say is that, I'm not terribly disappointed with my purchase. I realize it's not real. I realize the steel is going to be softer definitely than an S35VN. But having said that, apart from the fact that I'm disappointed about that blade shape, I actually am pretty happy with this knife and think that I will absolutely carry this and use it and enjoy it quite a bit. So there you go. Take that for whatever it's worth. As always, I appreciate y'all so much. Hit that subscribe and notification button down below. Help your man out. That is really appreciated. Thumbs up if I did okay. Thumbs down. Let me know what I did wrong, what I could do better. I do really appreciate any honest and sincere feedback. So anytime you got comments or suggestions, I really do want to hear it, y'all. I'm here to have a little fun with y'all. I'm not just, I mean, I could talk to myself all day long. I'm looking for a little interaction here. So y'all let me know what you think. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you on the next video. Y'all have a great day and take care.